The Last Humans has returned to the channel. If you want a quick overview of the previous 49 chapters to get up to speed with the story, check the description or the pinned comment below to get caught up. The arrival at Omega Base. The fleet's journey through the void of space had been marked by a tense anticipation. On board the Argus, Commander Elara Vance stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the vastness before them. Her fingers tapped rhythmically against the console, a small display of the anxiety she kept hidden from her crew. The 3 Federation ships, led by the Argus, moved in unison with the 5 rebel vessels. The vastness of space surrounded them, an endless sea of darkness dotted with distant stars. But ahead, Omega Base awaited, a bastion of hope and resistance. Vance's thoughts were interrupted by the soft chime of an incoming communication. "Commander Vance," the voice of Ensign Lorien echoed through the bridge. "We're nearing Omega Base. Long-range sensors are picking up the outer perimeter defenses. 2 rebel ships are moving to intercept us." "Understood," Vance replied, her voice steady. She reached for the comms panel. "Establish a link with Prince Arlon." A moment later, the view screen flickered to life, revealing the determined face of Prince Arlon. His expression, though calm, carried the weight of recent losses. Vance knew that beneath his composed exterior the pain of Alpha Point's destruction still simmered. "Prince Arlon," Vance began, her tone respectful. "We're approaching Omega Base. I see we're being met with an escort." Arlon nodded. "Yes, Commander. Security has been heightened since Alpha Point. Omega Base is our last stronghold, the heart of the Rebel Alliance. It's in a sector of space completely unknown to the Federation. Everything we've built, everything we stand for, is here." Vance could hear the resolve in his voice, but also the underlying tension. The loss of Alpha Point had been a blow not just strategically, but emotionally. "We understand, Prince Arlon. My ships are ready to assist in any way we can." As they conversed, the 2 rebel ships moved into formation with the Federation and rebel fleets. Vance watched as the ships communicated and adjusted their trajectories, seamlessly integrating into the larger formation. There was something both reassuring and daunting about the sight. This was no ragtag group of fighters. This was a disciplined, well-coordinated fleet. The conversation between Vance and Arlon turned to the recent events. "Alpha Point was more than just a station," Arlon said, his voice tinged with regret. "It was a symbol of our resistance, a place where our people believed they were safe. The Drac's attack wasn't just about destroying a base, it was about breaking our spirit." Vance nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We've received reports about the attack. The idea that there's a traitor among you, that's a wound that will take time to heal." Arlon's gaze hardened. "Omega Base will take this threat seriously, Commander. The transmission from Alpha Point wasn't just a warning, it was a call to action. We'll root out the traitor, whoever they are. We can't afford any more betrayals. The future of our alliance, of our people, depends on it." Vance admired Arlon's resolve, but she also recognized the burden he carried. "You're not alone in this, Prince Arlon. The Federation stands with you. We'll do everything we can to help you uncover the truth." Their conversation was interrupted by a new transmission. "Commander Vance," came the voice of Ensign Lorien once more. "We're approaching Omega Base. The sensor readings. You need to see this." Vance turned to the view screen, her breath catching at the sight. Hundreds of ships filled the space around Omega Base, a sprawling armada of rebel vessels of every shape and size. The base itself was a marvel of engineering, a massive structure nestled within the protective embrace of an asteroid field. Arlon's voice broke through her awe. "This is what remains of our fleet, Commander, the last stand of the Rebel Alliance. Every ship, every crew member here is ready to fight for our survival." Vance couldn't help but be impressed. "It's formidable," she admitted. "With this, we might just stand a chance." Arlon's eyes flickered with a mix of pride and sadness. "We've lost much, Commander, but as long as Omega Base stands, we'll continue to fight. And with the Federation's help, we might just turn the tide." As the combined fleet moved closer to Omega Base, Vance knew that the true test of their alliance was only just beginning. Trust had to be earned, and with the looming threat of betrayal, the path ahead was fraught with danger. But for now, they were united in their purpose, to fight back against the Drac and reclaim the galaxy. First, Impressions. As the fleet drew closer to Omega Base, the tension on the bridge of the Argus was evident. Commander Elara Vance, standing at the helm, observed the multitude of ships surrounding the rebel stronghold. Omega Base was unlike anything she had ever seen, a fortress hidden within an asteroid field, its defenses formidable, and its fleet a testament to the resilience of the rebel alliance. The closer they got, the more Vance could feel the weight of the decision they had made to ally with these people. "Commander," Ensign Lorian's voice cut through her thoughts, "we're receiving a docking signal from Omega Base. They're guiding us to a secure bay." "Understood," Vance replied, her gaze still locked on the view screen. "Prepare to dock. Maintain full sensor sweeps and keep communications open with the Valiant and the Sentinel. I want to know the moment anything changes." As the Argus maneuvered into position, Vance took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. This was no ordinary meeting. The future of their alliance, and perhaps the entire war against the Drac, hinged on the discussions that were about to take place. The docking process was smooth, a sign of the rebels' efficiency. As the ship settled into place, Vance turned to her senior officers. "Lieutenant Danson, you have the bridge. I'll be heading down to meet with Prince Arlon and the Rebel Council." "Aye, Commander," Danson replied, his face set with determination. He knew the importance of this mission as well as she did. Vance made her way to the airlock, where a small delegation of Federation officers waited to accompany her. Among them were Lyra and Rice, who had been instrumental in forming the alliance with the rebels. They were an unusual pair, a seasoned Federation operative and a brilliant pilot, both of whom had earned the trust of Prince Arlon during their escape from the Drac. Their presence was a reassurance, a reminder that the Federation and the rebels had already fought side by side and bled for the same cause. As the airlock doors hissed open, Vance was greeted by the sight of a small rebel contingent waiting for them. Prince Arlon stood at the forefront, his posture regal yet weary, flanked by a group of his most trusted officers. The moment Vance and her team stepped onto Omega Base, she could feel the eyes of countless rebels on them, watchful, curious, and cautious. "Commander Vance," Arlen greeted her with a respectful nod. His voice carried the weight of leadership, tempered by the recent loss of Alpha Point. "Welcome to Omega Base." "Prince Arlen," Vance replied, matching his nod with one of her own. "Thank you for having us." The tension in the air was thick, but it was not unfriendly. There was an unspoken understanding between the two leaders. Both knew that this alliance was born out of necessity, forged in the fires of war. Trust would not come easily, but it was a goal worth striving for. "These are uncertain times," Arlon continued, his gaze sweeping over the Federation officers. "But the fact that you're here, willing to stand with us, gives me hope that we can turn the tide against the Drac." Vance could see the respect in his eyes, but also the caution. The rebels had fought long and hard to remain free, and their alliance with the Federation was a gamble, one that could either save them or lead to their downfall. "Rest assured," Vance said, her voice steady. "The Federation is committed to this alliance. We've already seen what the Drac are capable of, and we know that our best chance of defeating them is by standing together." Arlen's expression softened slightly, though the wariness remained. "We appreciate that, Commander, but understand that there are those among us who are not so easily convinced. The attack on Alpha Point has made many of our people distrustful. They'll need to see that you're here for more than just your own interests." "That's why we're here, Prince Arlon," Lyra interjected, stepping forward. "We're not just here to fight the Drac. We're here to build something stronger. The Drac are a threat to all of us. If we fall, so does the Federation. But if we stand together—" Arlen nodded, a flicker of determination crossing his face. "Then perhaps we stand a chance." The group was led through the winding corridors of Omega Base, passing groups of rebels who eyed them with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. The base was a hive of activity. Mechanics worked on battered ships, strategists huddled over holomaps, and soldiers prepared for what was clearly expected to be a long and brutal campaign. Vance could see the dedication in their eyes, the unyielding resolve that had kept the Rebel Alliance alive against insurmountable odds. Finally, they arrived at the doors of the Rebel Council chamber. a vast room filled with the murmurs of rebel leaders engaged in heated discussions. The doors opened, and the room fell silent as Arlon and Vance entered. "Members of the Council," Arlon announced, his voice carrying through the chamber, "may I present Commander Ilara Vance of the Federation. She and her officers have come to discuss the future of our alliance." Vance stepped forward, meeting the gazes of the rebel leaders. The weight of the moment pressed down on her, but she held her head high. This was the first step in what would be a long and difficult journey. But as she looked at the faces around her, she knew that despite the challenges, this alliance had the potential to change the course of the war, and she was determined to see it through. The traitor's threat. The atmosphere in the Rebel Council chamber was tense, as Commander Ilara Vance stood before the gathered leaders, Prince Arlon by her side. The room, vast and filled with the murmurs of seasoned strategists and war-hardened officers, fell into a heavy silence as the proceedings began. This was more than just a meeting. It was a moment that would define the future of the alliance between the Federation and the rebel forces. As Vance prepared to address the council, Prince Arlon raised a hand, signaling for a holoprojector to be activated. "Before we proceed with our discussions," he began, his voice somber, "there is something you all need to hear." The lights dimmed slightly and the holoprojector flickered to life, casting a faint blue glow over the room. The image of a transmission, garbled and filled with static, filled the air. It was the last communication from Alpha Point, the rebel base that had been destroyed by the Drac only days before. The room fell eerily silent as the distorted voice of Arcos, the former commander of Alpha Point, echoed through the chamber.
"To anyone listening, seed, Drac, sabotage, trust no one."
The message cut off abruptly, leaving the room in a silence that was almost suffocating. The council members exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the words hanging heavy in the air. The room was heavy with the silence that followed the chilling message from Alpha Point. The weight of betrayal hung in the air, palpable in the uneasy glances exchanged among the council members. Finally, one of the council members, a seasoned operative named Kalen, who had long been responsible for coordinating intelligence reports from within Drac-controlled territories, broke the silence. "Prince Arlon," Kalen began, his voice measured but tinged with urgency. "We've been receiving sporadic reports from our operatives within Drac space. These aren't just idle rumors. There's actionable intelligence that could point us toward our traitor, or at the very least, provide us with a target that might be linked to their actions." The council leaned in, the tension in the room shifting toward a more focused energy. Kalen continued, "We've had word of a lone Drac vessel operating unusually close to our borders. It's a small ship, likely on a reconnaissance mission. Its proximity and the timing of its movements suggest it could be connected to the recent events at Alpha Point." Rice, who had been quietly observing the discussion, saw an opportunity. His experience as a Federation operative, combined with his recent encounters with the Drac, made him a valuable strategist in these discussions. He stepped forward, his expression one of intense concentration. "If there's a chance this ship is connected to the traitor, we need to act swiftly. A targeted strike would serve multiple purposes. We can eliminate a potential threat, test our alliance's capabilities in a real combat scenario, and gather any intelligence from the wreckage that might give us more insight into the Drac's strategies." Lyra, standing beside him, nodded in agreement. "We've already seen how the Drac operate. They use precision and deception to weaken their enemies. If this ship is part of a larger plan, taking it out could disrupt their next move." Prince Arlon's expression hardened with determination. "We will act on this intelligence, but this operation must be flawless. We can't afford any more losses, and we must ensure that our actions strengthen the alliance rather than expose its weaknesses." Vance spoke up, her tone resolute. "The Federation stands ready to support this mission. Our ships are equipped and our pilots are prepared. We'll work with your forces to ensure that this strike is a success." Kalen brought up a holographic display of the surrounding star systems, highlighting the location of the Drac ship. "Our intel suggests that the ship is relatively isolated, which means it's vulnerable. But we have to move quickly. The Drac aren't likely to leave such a valuable asset exposed for long." Rice nodded, already thinking ahead to the logistics. We can dispatch a squadron of our best fighters to engage the Drac ship, while your forces provide cover and support. If we coordinate our efforts, we can overwhelm them before they have a chance to call for reinforcements. Prince Arlen's voice cut through the strategizing, bringing everyone back to the immediate task at hand. Let's finalize the details and get this operation underway. Every moment we delay gives the Drac and our traitor more time to prepare. The council members began to discuss the specifics, their earlier tension replaced by a sense of purpose. The loss of Alpha Point had been a devastating blow, but now they had an opportunity to strike back. As the plan took shape, there was a renewed sense of unity in the room. The alliance, fragile as it was, would be tested in battle. And if they succeeded, it would be a clear message to the Drac and to the traitor among them. The rebels and the Federation were not to be underestimated. With the strike mission against the Drac ship planned, the focus of the meeting shifted to the immediate need for pilot training. Rice, who had been eager to address this, seized the moment. Before we launch any more significant operations, we need to ensure our pilots are at their best, Rice began. The Federation brought advanced space fighters with us, and we need to integrate them into the rebel fleet. I propose we start training sessions as soon as we return from the upcoming mission. Prince Arlon, understanding the necessity, nodded in agreement. Our pilots are brave, but many of them are inexperienced with this level of technology. If we're going to stand a chance against the Drac, they'll need to be proficient with these fighters. Rice continued. We'll start by identifying the most promising pilots from the rebel ranks. After the mission, I'll oversee the training, focusing on both the fundamentals of piloting these fighters and the tactics that have proven effective against the Drac. It's crucial that we build a cohesive force capable of acting in unison with Federation tactics. Lyra, ever supportive of Rice, added, we should also consider joint training exercises. Federation and rebel pilots working together will strengthen the bond between our forces and ensure that when we go into battle, we do so as a unified team. Vance, seeing the wisdom in the proposal, offered her support. The sooner we begin, the better. We'll need to be ready for any Drac retaliation, especially after we strike their isolated ship. I'll arrange for the necessary facilities and resources to be made available as soon as we return. The council agreed, and with that, the preparations for both the mission and the subsequent pilot training were set into motion. The anticipation in the air was now tempered with purpose. They were not just preparing for a battle. They were laying the foundation for a long-term alliance that could change the course of the war. As the meeting concluded, the leaders dispersed to oversee their respective tasks. The ships were being readied for the mission, and once completed, the pilots would be assembled for training. The stage was set for the Federation and rebel forces to take their first unified steps towards victory.